So, folks, there is, in fact, a a website that recently started, ostensibly about news, called the Free Press, and it recently did a debate series. And there's been a clip making the rounds on social media that I feel like we should talk about just like a little bit, because people might be confused as to, what spurred its creation. So let's take a quick look at it here.
I would love to be a stay-at-home mom. I would love to be a homemaker and a wife. I would love to be able to live on a homestead and go milk my cow and take the eggs out of the chicken coop and have one baby in the belly and on my hip and another toddler coming behind me. That's like my dream, but I can't fucking do that because the way the economy is set up is I'm forced to work. I'm forced to get an education, a higher education, a college degree in order to make enough money that I can be financially independent and afford my own home or my own rent or my own gas or my own groceries, my own insurance. And it's extremely difficult to do that. And it's very isolating as a woman when you have to do all of that all on your own and you can't find somebody that you can outsource some of those chores and financial responsibilities like you would with a spouse. So no, being a single working woman absolutely sucks. It's the worst thing ever. I hate it. I would go back to the 1950s in a second just so I wouldn't have to deal with this shit.
You're talking about a traditional nuclear family where the woman doesn't work in a married household with kids.
And statistically, that was the case.
You're a single woman who isn't married with kids yet.
So I'm for it because of the way it is. Most women were married by the age of 21 up until the 1970s.
I think it's a woman's choice. Before that, it was societally encouraged to marry young.
Yeah, and it was better for women mental health-wise long-term to be able to go into that long-term committed relationship and have the established family instead of being forced to slave away for a corporation that doesn't like you, doesn't care about you, makes you sit under fluorescent lights for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. You get a lunch break, you get health insurance, but do you have somebody who loves you staring at you every day like your child? No, it's horrible.
Incredible stuff going on in this clip here. Okay? Incredible stuff. I wanted to let it play all the way through. Before we go through it one more time and break it down, because I think maybe some of you are already starting to see some of the flaws in the argumentation here. All right, here we go.
I would love to be a stay-at-home mom. I would love to be a homemaker and a wife. I would love to be able to live on a homestead and go milk my cow and take the eggs out of the chicken coop and have one baby in the belly and on my hip and another toddler coming behind me. That's like my dream, but I can't fucking do that because the way the economy is set up is I'm forced to work.
Now, the thing that she's kind of missing is that you can still do all those things. As a woman, you can actually still go do all those things. Like, it's, as it was in the past, just incumbent on you to find a man who has the estate for you to milk the cows, who has the virility to give you those children, and, the financial security to be able to provide all these things and also like continue getting money to do things like pay for healthcare and for the delivery of your children. So like that hasn't changed. Like if you got married to someone in the 1950s for we'll just say, for example, who didn't own a farm, Do you think that you were gonna be doing any of those things? No. Like you had to go and marry the guy who owned all that stuff first. That's how that worked. And if you want to do that, you can still go do that. You can go find a farmer. Get on onlyfarmers.com, not sponsored, and find yourself a farm boy who has a farm for you to go milk cows on. You can do that. Like that. I mean, this is just a lack of ingenuity on your part here. Now, all of that aside, I understand kind of the point she's trying to make, which is that she's attributing the fact that she can't do that to the fact that the economy has really narrowed it so that most households have to have both partners working full time in order to support the household. Okay, like that is for most people the case. However, that was also the case for a lot of people who were not well off financially in the past as well. We'll get to that, but let's play some more here.
I'm forced to get an education, a higher education, a college degree, in order to make enough money that I can be financially independent and afford my own home or my own rent or my own gas.
Now, this is interesting, right? Because you're not forced to get a higher education. You are forced to get a high school degree. You're not forced to go get a college degree. Now, does society generally tend to tell you that you should get a college degree in order to get more, like make more money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Yes. However, I just want to point out there, you can go to like trade school. You know, you can like apprentice as like an electrician or a plumber. Women can do that. That's like you don't have to go and get like a bachelor's degree. You could just apprentice somewhere. But again, you know, she's talking about mainstream narratives of how women in the mainstream economy are supposed to be, right? And she's not really thinking outside of those lanes. So, within the confines of the mainstream, yeah, people will tell you, yeah, you should get a degree. You'll make more money. Which tends to be true. Just as an FYI, that does tend to be true.
My own groceries, my own insurance, and it's extremely difficult to do that. And it's very isolating as a woman when you have to do all of that all on your own, and you can't find somebody that you can outsource some of those chores and financial responsibilities like you would with a spouse.
Now, I'm going to pause right here and say, in the past, I want to be clear, in the past, women weren't outsourcing chores to their husbands. That wasn't the women were doing the chores. That was their homework. That was the duty that they had as a wife. They were. Anyone ever watched the Jetsons? If you were a woman, your job was basically to be Rosie the robot and like clean up everything and do the dishes and, you know, like take care of the kids. That was it.
So no, being a single working woman absolutely sucks.
Counterpoint, it's pretty great actually. Like being like an independent single person is pretty great. The thing she seems to be complaining about here, in a very roundabout way, is being on a single income tends to suck if you're living, you know, as if you have dual income, when you don't. You know? She wants to live in the 1990s, not the 50s. Well, let's find out.
It's the worst thing ever. I hate it. I would go back to the 1950s in a second just so I wouldn't have to deal with this shit.
Now, aside from the very obvious privilege of making a statement like, I would go back to the 1950s in a second, like, yeah, you're a white lady. You know, you wouldn't immediately be singled out as suspicious or, you know, for discrimination, at least racially. But like in the 1950s, you know, you wouldn't have been able to have a independent account, right? Like if you were married, your account, you didn't have a bank account. Your husband had the bank account. Like if you would have not had as many rights as a man in society.
You're talking about a traditional nuclear family where the woman doesn't work in a married household with kids.
Now, this person brings up an excellent point here because the traditional nuclear family isn't a thing. I know this might come as a surprise to a lot of people, but like the idea that like the man goes to work and the wife stays home with the kids and is the homemaker and you just make it off of that one income and everything's fine. That was a very unique phenomenon that was widespread during the 1950s, largely because it was the post World War II era when America had a gigantic economic boom. But prior to that, and for, disenfranchised groups of people like African Americans, families had to have both the husband and the wife working. Now, it wasn't like the wife could typically go and do like the same jobs as a man, but often women would do things like sewing, handicrafts. They would wind up like selling little knickknacks that they would make at the home. They would wind up doing things that would create revenue streams for the family. They would go and do housework in other homes. They would go and do menial labor for richer families. Like this was like the idea that the nuclear family was like the main thing has always been a fiction. Yeah, honestly, salmon moose, one of the popular jobs for women who had received certain amounts of education was to work as a computer. And I mean that in like the sense of like someone who computes things. Like that used to be a job prior to us having, machine computers. People could work as computers, and that was largely predominantly done by women, actually. This is why it was kind of seen as it was kind of seen as embarrassing early on in computing for a man to work in software, because the computing, writing the code, was not seen as masculine as working with the actual hardware. So like there's a whole lot of things, and even after like software became like more important for computers, like machine computers, women tended to do that until later on in the 1970s. And then it started getting marketed towards men and boys, right? And so like there's a lot of layers here, but I just really want to hammer home that like what she's talking about is middle class income. And frankly, if you have a middle class income in America right now, you can get away with a stay-at-home like spouse. If you're making a middle class income relative to your location in America, you can still have a stay-at-home spouse. Does it maximize your income? No. Might it like put some like restraint on what you can buy? Sure. But can you do it? Yes.
And statistically, that was the case.
You're a single woman who isn't married with kids yet. Like,
yeah.
Because
So I'm
the way our
for because
system
of the way
is.
it is. Most women were married by the age of 21 up until the 1970s.
I think it's a woman's choice. Before that, it was societally encouraged to marry young.
Yeah, and it was better for women mental health-wise long-term to be able to go into that long-term committed relationship and have the established family instead of being forced to slave away for a corporation that doesn't like you, doesn't care about you, makes you sit under fluorescent lights for 8, 9.
All right, we're gonna pause here. We're gonna back up a little bit, but guys, the overwhelming majority of people, and some of you might be young. I assume some people in my audience are young. You generally haven't met the person you want to spend the rest of your life with by the age of 21. That's not a thing that tends to happen. Like, and especially not in like the 1950s or 1960s. Generally, if you met someone early on in your life, you were encouraged to get married. And a lot of people did. And you want to know what happened to those people? They wound up being miserable. They wound up being so goddamn sad because they felt like they couldn't get divorced. They felt like they were stuck in their marriages that were unhappy. And so, you know what women tended to do? They tended to medicate themselves. They tended to take Valium. They tended to take, you know, a lot of prescription pills, non-prescription pills, alcohol, etc. You know? Yeah, like this was the golden age where on, in television, you would see men and women joking about how much they hated their wife or their husband. That's where like this became like a meme that has been replicated to this day. You know, the old ball and chain makes you miserable, keeps you from doing what you want to do. And it's like, that's because they were unhappy. I've got to, hey guys, bring it in, okay? Bring it in a little bit, all right? I know that this might seem a little wild, all right? I know this might seem a little wild, all right? Is there a way I can actually like zoom in? That'd be so funny. Okay, so if you got married as a teenager, you weren't typically happy. You weren't typically happy, okay? Like that wasn't a thing that you were good at, all right? And if you happen to get married, you'd be stuck in these loveless marriages. You just pump out kids. But guys, people in happy, fulfilling relationships don't joke about how much they hate their partner. Okay, that's not, if you're in a happy relationship, it's not actually like funny to talk about how much you hate your partner. And that was commonplace. It was common in the media because it was common for husbands and wives to hate each other. Okay? All right. Let's bring it back out. Okay. All right, I now have the ability to zoom. Excellent. It was also practically impossible to get divorced. True. Yeah, how get divorced with what money? You didn't have independent like bank account info. Like where are you going to get the money for a lawyer for divorce? Ay. Anyway, moving on.
And have the established family instead of being forced to slave away for a corporation that doesn't like you, doesn't care about you, makes you sit under fluorescent lights for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. You get a lunch break, you get health insurance, but do you have somebody who loves you staring at you every day? Like,
I just want to point out
Woman's choice before that.
go into that long-term committed relationship and have the established family instead of being forced to slave away for a corporation that doesn't like you, doesn't care about.
So, if you got into a marriage where you had to stay at home and you did not like your husband, this is exactly your scenario, except that instead of slaving away for 8 to 12 hours a day, you're slaving away for 24 hours a day. There is no escape for you. And if you are in a loveless relationship, it turns out, well, sucks to suck. You don't have any out. You can't just quit and go find a different job.
About you, makes you sit under fluorescent lights for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. You get a lunch break, you get health insurance, but
wow, you're describing the situation you find to be ideal. Like that, the 1950s, like getting married to a man, like for the vast majority of women, was this, minus the fluorescent lighting, because they hadn't come up with that yet.
do you have somebody who loves you staring at you every day like your child? No.
Again, Notice how she's not saying, do you have someone who loves you, who stares at you every day, like your husband? Because even she knows that she's kind of full of shit on that one.
It's horrible.
Like it's just absolutely incredible. Now, if you're like, well, why are we paying attention to this, Jack? Like, what's the deal? Okay. What's the deal with that? Who is that? Let's see if I can pull this up for you guys here. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-da-da. Do we have this here? Ba-ba-da-da-ba. I'm trying to find this for you guys. Where is it? I don't want reading. Where is this? Ah, the swing debates. Here we go. Who is this here? Firefishy, thank you for subscribing over on Twitch. I appreciate it. Now let's see here. Does it not say who these people are? All right, cool. I just want to.
I think we're like all.
I want.
You know.
I want to double check who these people are. Oh, of course it doesn't list it in the video. Excellent.
Mostly grown up, and we're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
You're like, last voting for if you
Sophomore in college. I'm Kamala Harris.
For the mission.
or whatever.
Post.
I'm also
Voting for.
GOP of him or whatever. And why don't we start
I'll
over
let you
here
see
and
what
just
I'm
go
showing.
around.
Dave Smith and Joe Rogan.
I get mine from
At
My
pass me your vote. American Gen Z is
saying that love your country, perpetuate.
the first trying to woo. Gen Z. Tell me your name and what you do, including if you're active in any political capacity, and who you're planning on voting for if you've decided yet. Let's start with you.
My name is Katie. I am 23. I work as a respiratory therapist, so not really political. I represent the Libertarian Party, and I'm going to vote for Trump.
I'm Stella. I am 19 and a sophomore in college. I am the communications director for the Michigan College Democrats, and I plan on voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Sam Ditsazy. I currently work in politics in Lansing. I'm legislative director there. I managed students for Trump back in 2020, and as you can imagine, I'm voting for Donald Trump again in 2024.
My name is Amber Henson. I am a current undergrad at the University of Michigan. I am the state executive board vice president for the Michigan College Democrats, and I am voting for Kamala Harris.
So I'm Jackie Eubanks. I'm the state director of Catholics for Trump. So I think you all know who I'll be voting for.
So, yeah, that's right. She's the state director for Catholics for Trump. And guys, we're not watching this entire thing. We're not doing it. We're not doing that. We're not doing it. But as you can imagine, of course, that's the worldview that she has here. Okay? Like that is where she comes from. All right? Now, if you're wondering, who is this? Who is this Jackie Eubanks? Well, here's a little excerpt from a couple years ago when she made some headlines. Trump endorsed her. Now she wants to use state power to crush the left and impose God's moral order. Jackie Eubanks, a Gen Z zealot running for state office in Michigan, vows to make contraception illegal, insisting God's morality is for everybody. And here's a picture of her 2 years ago with Donald Trump. She looks insane in that picture. Yes, she does. And, you know, gonna say something that's a little mean here. I'm gonna say something that's a little mean. Okay? Just like a little bit mean, though. Frankly, I'm gonna make it big just so I can really hammer this point home. Do we have a... There we go. Frankly, guys, those bangs indicate how evil she is. Those are evil bangs. Her bangs give her away as a demon, okay? Those bangs are bad, and she should feel bad about them, okay? At least 2 years ago, she just looked blatantly evil and crazy, and those bangs, they're the inverted horns of the beast, okay? There we go. Nailed it. Nailed it. Anyway, just taking a quick look here. Jackie Eubanks is running for Michigan legislature with a wholehearted endorsement from Donald Trump, who calls her an America First patriot. Her agenda, banning contraception, gay marriage, and imposing the Christian moral order on the nation. So guys, in case you guys have any doubt about who is supporting Donald Trump and what they intend to do, she is actually the epitome of that. Do you know anyone who's gay married? She wants to invalidate their marriage. Do you know anyone who's had sex out of wedlock? She wants to put them in prison. Eubanks, a Gen Z conservative who falsely claims Trump won the 2020 election in Michigan, disclosed her extreme views in an interview on Church Militant, a digital media service that has been designated by the Southern Poverty Law Center as an anti-LGBTQ hate group. It was actually such a ginormous hate group that it recently shut down its public-facing operations because it's widely recognized as a hate group. Church Militant is run by Michael Voris, an ex-TV news reporter and formerly gay man, who's been criticized as a leader of the Catholic alt-right. Yeah. So, you know, it's not surprising that someone like that is like, yeah, I'd go back to the 1950s when it was so much better for women. Like, she's delusional, deranged, and a bigot. The reason she wants to go back to the 1950s is quite literally because I'm quite sure of this. She believes that like black people were better off prior to the Civil Rights Act. Like these people are nut jobs. And I need to be clear about something. Not only are these people nut jobs, it's alienating to normal Republicans. You know, there used to be like a normal, like a contingent of normie Republicans. Those were the people who like showed up to like volunteer for political campaigns. The reason Donald Trump can't find a ground game in any of these major states is because all of the normal Republicans are like completely disgusted by like the mask off racism. They need the mask to be on. They need the mask to be on for them to have the plausible deniability. Without the mask, they're like, wait a minute, these are open Nazis. We can't support those guys. Wait a minute, that guy's the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. We can't do that. You know, there is a line for the normie Republican, and I think that Donald Trump crossed it, you know, sometime between now and this election and the last one, somewhere between 2020 and now, probably with Jan 6th, if I'm being completely honest with you. So again, all of this is to say, I think that it bolsters the case here. Like, these people are nuts. These people are nuts. I don't think it's we can't do that, more that they don't believe that they think those things. Well, true, Natalie Schneider. Like, normie Republicans don't want to put themselves in the same bucket as the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis or white supremacists. They need the plausible deniability. They need that veneer of respectability. Yeah, what they need is a William F. Buckley to kind of like sane wash their positions to liberals, you know? And I have to be honest with you, there is no William F. Buckley now. William F. Buckley was a racist POS. Okay? That's right, a racist point of sale device. But like but they don't have that anymore. Like, Ben Shapiro is maybe the closest that they have, but he's not William F. Buckley. He doesn't have the mainstream appeal of William F. Buckley. Most people in like normal world don't know anything about Ben Shapiro. They've never heard of him before. You know? So anyway, I found that this clip going viral, I found it fascinating because I think it kind of reveals so much about what's going on behind the scenes with like the current Trump movement. I think it's indicative. I think it's indicative of what's going on, and it's just so incredibly alienating to normal people who are like, that's what? You want to be barefoot in the kitchen? That's weird. I mean, like, you do you, but like you shouldn't be able to put that on us. God. Anyway, there we go. We did it.